everybody. How's it going? Mark G here again. As promised, for a follow up on how to mix my AXFX presets. Now, if you listen to my little intro video audio, it's that kind of chuggy guitar riff with a swell and stuff in the front. I'm actually gonna mix those tracks in this video. So, real quick, an overview of how AXFX3 works with Reaper. It's actually very easy, and one of the main reasons I have an AXFX3, it's so ridiculously easy to record when you have one of these things. So all you do is you got your laptop. I'm on Windows 10. You install the AXFX3 drivers, which you need for AXEdit anyway. And then in Reaper, you configure ASIO settings to connect your tracks from that are directly feeding into Reaper. I'm going to open that ASIO setting real quick so you can see it. I think it cuts my audio when I do this. Yeah, so there you go. You can kind of screenshot that if you want. That's how you set up your ASIO settings once you have those drivers installed. Now what you do is you add a track, and then you right click on the track here and then input mono, and these are your blocks from your AXFX3, which show up because you set up the ASIO settings. All right, so that's a little quick overview of AXFX3 Reaper setup. I can go deeper if ask questions in the comments. So what I do in my last video, I showed you my EVH, rectifier, and angle tones as a demo. And I'm going to show you how I fed those in here and how I mix them into the tone you hear in my intro video. So first, the EVH, you go to input mono, and you want to read that puppy in mono, not in stereo. And you disengage your enhancer block. Same with the rectifier, same exact thing, input mono. And then the angle, you want to input, this is how I do it, you input stereo. And there's a reason I do that, with the enhancer block engaged on the angle preset. And one thing, as you know, beginners to recording metal tones, a lot of people don't realize you're not just copying one take of these. You're actually playing the song 3 different times with the different presets fed in to each track. So I basically played this tune 3 times. Once here, and then these two are the same take. All right, so that's enough about that. So let's hear each. Well, actually, one more thing is I always set up my rhythm tracks into a bus. And all a bus means is you're routing a bunch of tracks that are like child tracks through this parent track. So you're kind of funneling them together. And that's just an easy way to control where you put different effects on those tracks. So let's look at how I actually set these up. So one at a time, let's play these tracks. So let's hear the EVH in the raw mono. Yep, so there's EVH. Not exactly, it's not super compelling. So let's go to the rectifier. Little more low end in that one. And then these angles, I'll just play one. Real crispy. All right, so right now, all these tracks are just fed in raw, and they're right up the middle. So what I'm going to do is show you how I pan these to get to the basic immediate gratification of a chunky tone. So I'm going to play this in a loop and just, you can watch what I do here. But I'm going to pan EVH left, pan recto right, and immediately you'll hear a pretty nice sound on that. And then I'm going to mix in. I'll probably stop after that, and then I'll mix those in. So let's play both of these at the same time, and I'll show you how the magic of panning them works. And by the way, when you play two takes of the same song, like you literally play it, you get just enough of a difference in how you play it to actually give it a better saturated tone. So playing it twice is really critical. You get just enough phasing for it to kind of fill in its own gaps and make a nice tone. So, and by the way, timing is obviously really important. So let me play this, and I'll show you. You'll see me panning. So that got pretty sweet pretty quick. You can feel it kind of spread out and thicken up and kind of merge those two tones through your brain from each ear, and it sounds pretty chunky. So now I'm gonna blend in these angles while I'm playing in the same loop. So now I'm going to kind of fade these up into the mix, and this is what I think gives it a pretty nice edgier, crisp tone. So let's do it. Now you can start tweaking the crap out of that, but you can see how that turned it into a pretty tasty tone. So we now have 3 takes that we turned into 4 tracks, and you're getting this tone. Pretty sweet. That's no effects on it at all, or no controls. That's raw AXFX3 outputs into Reaper. So now I'm going to show you a little bit of how I EQ things. But before I do, I want to cover real quick 3 real basic principles that I use in mixing. And I don't claim to be a guru at mixing, but I do claim to have reduced it pretty much to its essential parts. And these are the 3 I always dwell on. One is you have what I call volume dynamics, which is pretty simply setting the volumes of the different tracks so in totality it sounds good. The second one is what I call frequency disambiguation, which means every track or every instrument that you mix kind of has a natural frequency range, and you don't want them to clash. The classic clashes happen between like your bass and your kick, or your bass and the lower mids of your rhythm, or the lower sounds in your lead against your rhythm. So it kind of cascades like that. So you want to make sure that the way you EQ tracks keeps them separate enough so you achieve. So you don't just have a jumbled up mess of like rumbly tones and all that. So that's 2 of them. The third one is what I call the stereo distribution. So this is how do you spread the tracks from left to right, and not just tracks but sounds in general. So think about those 3 principles. Where is the volume at in respect to everything else? Where are the frequencies in respect to everything else? And where do you have instruments sitting in the spectrum from left to right? There's also a concept of forward and backward too, with like reverb and stuff. But the 3 basic ones are those. So I'm going to touch on EQing right now. I digressed a little right there. All right, so I'm going to pop open my EQ for this rhythm channel. And it's very simple. So if what I'm doing is just high pass, low passing, some just rumble and static out of it. Not touching the mid range at all, and I'm just taking a little bit of edge off of it at this, frequency right around here. So let me play this and then turn that on. Extremely subtle, right? Like you can't. That might have been behind my head. Like very subtle difference. So let's look at another aspect of what I usually put on one of these buses, and that's a compressor. So let's play this, and I'll turn the compressor on. Yep. So you can hear it kind of brighten certain. I should have shown that certain frequencies. So this is a multi-band compressor, which means you can control volume dynamics. One of my principles, not mine, but they're just principles. Um, by frequency ranges. So a lot of times, if you're feeding in your tone and it's way too chuggy and woofy, you can actually control that to some degree by, isolating that frequency and controlling the volume of it. So basically, allows you to get super control freaky about volume dynamics by frequency in your mix. So I'm gonna leave that on. So now, like, that's how I set up the rhythm tracks. If you like them, you like them. If you don't, maybe it's a good starting point. Sounds pretty tight. Now, it might sound a little edgy, like not enough bass in it, but there's a bass guitar in this mix. So let's look at the bass real quick. This is how I usually EQ my bass. Notice I'm using it for what it's naturally used for. I'm trying to get the bass out of it. The other stuff is really conflicting with a lot of other parts of the mix, so I leave it at that. And I usually put a single compressor on the bass. So let's play this and then turn the bass on, and you can hear it. I usually refer to the bass as a thickener. By the way, I'm not good at playing bass. And people like their bass at different volumes. Maybe I'm typical, my generation of metal. The bass was barely audible. It's kind of thickening the guitars. Um, that's just me. All right. So, and then take a look at the drums real quick. Drums are usually looking something like this. Oftentimes, you'll have a bunch of different tracks for each element of your kit, of your drum kit. I didn't do that for this track. This is just one stereo track of a drum machine going in here. So notice how it's going to allow a lot of kick bass in there, but not so much that it's going to conflict with the bass guitar so much. So let's hear the whole thing with the bass and rhythm and drums. Yep, so not bad. Sounds pretty good. I think my drums could be a little better, but that's beside the point of this video. And then I got Shred in here. Shred, was my JCM 800 model that I demoed. This is the track for that right here. And this one, similar to the Angle, you want to feed it in stereo, and make sure your enhancer's on in that block, and then pipe that into this track. And then I usually severely EQ my lead so it really differentiates from the rhythm guitar, especially the way I have my lead presets are kind of beefy. Um, you got to be able to hear them separately. So I'll turn that one on now, and you can hear it come in. Actually, I got to extend this for you to hear it. So anyway, that's the mix, which is a really basic way of mixing. A few rhythm tracks, a bass guitar, and some shred. Now, vocals is a little different, but you can treat vocals similarly to shredding. Although I don't claim to be an expert on that. By the way, there's a couple folks on YouTube I recommend you check out. One is Frightbox Recording. Bobby Torres does great videos on metal mixing. I learned a ton from him. I'm probably regurgitating half of what, it's like an accumulation of his videos in my head. And then another couple folks really diving into compression. So check it out. Let me know in the comments if you want me to do more mixing videos. But this was designed to get you up and running with some kick-ass tone in using the AXFX presets in my previous video. So without further ado, that's it. Let's end this. Have a good day. Thanks for watching.